Good afternoon. This week's focus on the treasures of the SoG is Monumental Inscriptions and Memorials. Our speaker, as ever, is Elsa, who's the genealogist at the SoG. She teaches regularly in the education program, at overseas events and conferences, and her special interest is genealogy before 1837. The floor is yours, Elsa.
Oh, thank you very much. And again, welcome to this regular opportunity to look at some of the unique and special things which are held in the Society of Genealogists Library. And today I'd like to talk about our remarkable collection, including thousands of works transcribing information from monumental inscriptions, from tombstones in churches, churchyards and cemeteries, and our plans how we make these accessible. I'm also going to mention one of our more specialised collections of memorial cards, which has been digitised and put online. I will, of course, give you a copy of these, a PDF copy of all the slides, and tell you during the presentation how you can access some of the material online, and more likely at our offices in Wharf Road. Most family historians like me simply can't go past a graveyard or churchyard without wondering about the people buried there and hoping that the information that might have been on the tombstones and monuments were recorded before the elements or indeed circumstances battered away their stories. I used to adore the Hardy Tree in St Pancras Gardens in Camden, which was formerly the churchyard of St Pancras Old Church, supposedly created by the young Thomas Hardy, who was working there as an architect. But some local historians inform me it wasn't actually him, but a subordinate who, when working there in the mid-1860s, oversaw the excavation of part of the churchyard in the course of the construction of the Midland Railway's London terminals. What became known as the Hardy Tree grew up between piles of disturbed gravestones over decades, its thick roots anchoring the souls of some of Camden's forgotten dead to earth. Sadly, in bad weather in 2 years ago now, in December 22, it was toppled over, and the tree is no more. Though a replacement has been planted in the graveyard, it's no longer within the pile of memorial stones. And in fact, no one's told me what's happened to that pile of stones. But the genealogist in me suspects that when these old headstones were cleared, the inscriptions probably weren't that well recorded for future genealogists. The people noted on these stones aren't included, for example, in the published collections of curious and interesting epitaphs copied from the monuments of distinguished and noted characters in the ancient church and burial ground, published by Frederick D. Teague Kanzik in 1869, and of which we have a copy in the Society. And I'm sure that nothing can be found on those stones today. Luckily, millions of inscriptions have been recorded. Along with records of death and burial, the information recorded for posterity on monuments and memorials is not only fascinating, but genealogically invaluable. And many of these recorded inscriptions can be found in the library of the Society of Genealogists. Of course, some gravestones or memorials may indicate a family plot or commemorate several generations. You could draw out quite intricate family trees with interesting biographical information and occupations for the Barber and Phipson families on the inscriptions from these two gravestones. And of course, that's exactly the kind of information you hope is accurately noted for posterity, and that hasn't been changed if the gravestone has been re-incised over the years, for example.
Hello.
The Society of Genealogists has monumental inscriptions recorded from local headstones in the churchyard of the parish of Llandinabo, compiled by the Herefordshire Family History Society in the 1980s. Now, this is delightful for me because this is the area where my family come from. And amongst these MIs is a note of a decorated headstone which says it was an inscription enclosed in an oval panel that read in the 1980s, when the transcription was made, in memory of Anne Churchitt, buried on July the 7th, 1716, aged 41. But This is not noted in the published burial registers of the parish of Llandinarbo, nor is that burial in the original parish registers or the BTs, as I've checked the film copies we have at the Society of Genealogists. So the MI at the moment is the only evidence I have found for Anne's death and burial. I've checked the neighbouring parishes as well. So I've actually visited the graveyard, and with the help of the plan that was made and included with the transcribed MIs held at the SoG, I found the monument, but sadly the supposed age is now no longer visible, presumably having deteriorated since the inscription was made. This could possibly be the Anne Churchitt, who I know was baptised in the neighbouring parish of Llanwan in 1677. Several other family members were baptised in Llanwan and buried in Llandinarbo, but this only adds up if Anne was baptised at the age of around 2. I've also checked the burial registers of Llanwan in case Anne was buried there, and the monument raised in the neighbouring parish, but she's not in the Llanwan registers either. So this monumental inscription is intriguing and certainly interesting evidence. The monuments and memorials made to commemorate and remember the dead has long interested antiquarian historians and genealogists. Academic and antiquarian interests, such as the Church Monument Society, or, for example, a recent study of British and Irish gravestones overseas that we've just taken into the Society. As you would expect, the SoG holds many early surveys and transcriptions or memorials and monuments made by antiquarians in the 17th and 18th century, such as John Weaver and Richard Goff. The poet and antiquary John Weaver, 1576 to 1632, was born in Lancashire and wrote what is probably the first book solely about church monuments, describing those in the Diocese of Canterbury, Rochester, London and Norwich only, but he never completed his project. There are a few woodcut illustrations, but the importance of this book is that it describes much of what has been subsequently lost, although it must be said describing them somewhat vaguely. John Weaver himself was buried in St James's Church, Clerkenwell, very near to our old library at Charterhouse Buildings, and of course we have a copy of this early work in the Society's library. It's one of our oldest books. The antiquary Richard Goff, 1735 to 1809, was also born in London, and he wrote the first comprehensive survey of church monuments dating from the 11th to the 15th century. This work in 2 sections was often to be found in 5 massive volumes, but at the Society of Genealogists, our set comprises just 2 rather chunky volumes. The work is profusely illustrated. Goff was not an artist himself, so he employed a number of artists and craftsmen to make the many copious illustrations, mainly etchings, which are therefore varying in accuracy and standards. He himself is buried in Wormley Churchyard in Hertfordshire. So the library also holds learned societies journals and periodicals, such as those of the Church Monument Society and the Monumental Brass Society. And I should hereby acknowledge the very useful bibliography of older antiquarian surveys of monuments, which is made available on the Church Monument Society website. And I'm pleased to say the Society of Genealogists Library holds most of the titles they recommend, along with many more recent publications and guides in their bibliography. While we have the works of many historians and antiquarians recording local monuments of the worthy and venerable, I'd like to consider the work of the antiquarian Ralph Bigland. In 1728, Bigland was apprenticed within the tallow chandlers' company in the city of London to be a cheesemaker. He was made free of the tallow chandlers' company in 1737 and eventually served as its master in 1772. But he was fascinated more by antiquarian and heraldic interests, which is reflected in his own mural monument at Gloucester Cathedral. And my photograph of that is shown here on the left of the screen. Bigland's antiquarian concerns brought about a change of career. He was a skilled draftsman and a methodical genealogist, and he climbed steadily in the heraldic hierarchy and was made King of Arms for the last 11 years of his life at the College of Arms. He became Norrow King of Arms in 1773, Clarenceux King of Arms in 1774, and Garter Principal King of Arms in 1770. He died on the 27th of March, 1784, and was buried on the 8th of April at Gloucester Cathedral, practicing what he preached. He drafted the inscription, which contains a huge quantity of genealogical information, and he used to impress on people that your tombs should be as informative as they possibly could be. And his monument is there amongst the effigies and tombstones of the great and good in the cathedral. And it's these effigies, cathedral slabs, armorial hatchments on the wall and incised ledger stones, and monumental brasses on the floor, which are mostly to be found in cathedrals and churches, which were of the interest of antiquarians. They tended to ignore what was going on in the churchyard. But Bigland was a bit more far-seeing. Much of his antiquarian work was focused on Gloucestershire. Over time, he travelled the whole county, accumulating historical information and making it his business to record the inscriptions on everything, from great monuments in the church to modest gravestones. Eventually, his work, historical, monumental and genealogical collections relative to the county of Gloucester, were published as a definitive edition in 4 volumes by the Bristol and Gloucestershire Archaeological Society between 1989 and 1995. Of course, we have those, and the original early volumes he managed to publish himself in the 18th century. And quite unusually and early, he does note the name, ages and dates of the deaths for those recorded in the headstones, in this case outside in the churchyard of the parish of Wollaston. And then 200 years later, in 1970, a transcription of all the surviving headstones in the church and churchyard of Wollaston was made by R. Lewin and deposited in our library. The Society encourages and collects transcripts of memorial inscriptions or tombstones and other monuments in local churchyards and cemeteries, and provided a place of deposit. Gradually, we've accumulated probably the largest collection of what we call MIs together in one place. And of course, we concentrate on parishes in the churches in the United Kingdom, but we have an enormous number for overseas in the places where the British migrated to. Along with the older antiquarian style surveys, we have continued to collect MIs recorded more recently. Many of these have been recorded by local family history societies who really got going in the 1980s and who traditionally have deposited copies with the church itself, the local record office and at the SoG. But many of our MI transcripts were recorded especially for the Society by our members and volunteers. And from our beginnings in 1911 to when I joined the Society in the 1990s, the Society employed a Monumental Inscriptions Secretary who coordinated the work of our volunteers and who liaised with local societies to ensure our collection could be as complete as possible. Indeed, the Society today liaises with the Church of England commissioners who inform us if a churchyard is likely to be decommissioned and which might affect the tombstones. We can pass on information to a local society or interested parties who can ensure the MIs have been recorded and the interests of family historians are acknowledged. So I want to bring you up to date with what we're doing with what became thousands and thousands of bound volumes of transcribed monumental inscriptions, which, if you remember and go back to the old building at Charterhouse Buildings, used to be largely on our county shelves, bound up in blue. Remember, we had all these blue volumes on a county shelf. They would be the county MIs. As a means of saving space, these have now all been scanned and digitised and have been saved as searchable PDFs. And at the moment, you can view these at the Society of Genealogists, though we do have plans eventually to make those which are ours available to view from home online. But the scanning of all of these has reduced the footprints of the shelves phenomenally. So we've literally scanned thousands of books. So you can start your journey looking to see what we have through the search collections page of the website. And if you select the library catalogue page, make sure that that's highlighted in yellow, and you can start to search to see what we hold for the places that will include monumental inscriptions. So here, for example, I've started a search for the place Alkmonton, which is in Derbyshire. This will lead you to the library catalogue for the sources relating to that place, one of which includes the monumental inscriptions transcribed by Sandra Tompkinson by the local Family History Society. This transcription has been typed up and bound amongst other MIs for the county in a book in the library. but as we're currently storing most of the library off-site, we have decided to scan those, and then you can come to view the scanned image at the Society. The contents pages within the Alkmans and MIs tell me that it contains monumental inscriptions from inside the church and outside the churchyard. There's a nice plan of the churchyard showing where the tombstones can be found, and copies were given to the Society of Genealogists, the local record office, libraries, and the church. So if one mislays them, which is quite often the church, I have to say, there are backup copies around. As you can see, it's a typescript, which is a little faint but legible, and transcribes what was written on the tombstone. Perhaps slightly easier to read is here is a transcript and translation of a 17th century gravestone written in Latin from the churchyard of Dulbury, All Saints, again in Derbyshire. Well, so you can use the catalogue to search and see if we have MIs for the places where your ancestors lived, and then come to view them at the Society. The catalogue lists the MIs we hold. A few subject searches of the catalogue tell me that we have general work, such as guides to how you should transcribe entries on tombstones and memorials. It gives you some help on recording and collating the inscription information, how to interpret the memorials. Indeed, there are guides to tell you how to actually look after them, the physical stone itself, and how to record it without making any damage. We hold MIs for local churchyards and cemeteries in UK counties, and that's not only for Anglican parishes, but for municipal cemeteries, non-Anglican denomination burial grounds where they exist, and some Jewish cemeteries. We have overseas monumental inscriptions for cemeteries, especially where the British people may be buried, including many for India and Southeast Asia. For example, we have MIs recorded by SoG members in India, and we hold the BAXA, the British Association for Cemeteries in South Asia Association, publications and transcriptions. We have MIs for cemeteries and gravestones and graveyards in many countries and territories where the British visited, such as the Falkland Islands, Hong Kong, and just search the catalogue for places and see what there is. And indeed, a general search of the catalogue for anything with the word monumental in it shows we've got over 20,000 items listed in the library catalogue. So scanning all of those meant that we've severely saved a lot of space. These can also include war memorials, epitaphs, as well as individual headstones and monuments. A quick search of the catalogue shows we have something listed for over 900 war memorials in the UK and overseas. Again, they're listed in the catalogue, and they often feature in articles in the Genealogist magazine. So there was an article here in a couple of years ago in September 22 on the a study of the Bath Crimean War Memorial, looking at those who had been commemorated and those who actually had been omitted as well. So having identified which MIs you're interested in and you want to view, you'll need to book to view them at Wharf Road. And there's information on how you can book a visit on the Visit Us page of the SoG website. This takes you through to the booking page and gives you a checklist of things that you would need to do before you come, and also a collections order form. And then if you tell us that you're interested in a particular monumental inscription, we will have that scan of the PDF files on our servers, and we'll make them available for you to view on a PC to view at the Society of Genealogists. Now, you can only view these on one of our PCs, so you do have to book a computer at the same time. You can, of course, make copies, and there's information about making copies on the visit pages of the website, and you can bring a memory stick in to download images, but that we will make a charge for bringing a device like that or a camera into the library of £5 a day. The search pages of the SoG website also provide a pathway to search our collections, which have already been digitised and made available to our members to view from home. We're moving our digital collections from an old platform over to what we're now going to be calling SoG Explore, and that migration of all the data is nearing completion with all the old indexes that are on there. And when SoG Explore has a new upgraded image viewer, the browsable books, which are on the old digital collections, will be a lot easier to use as well. But so it does mean at the moment you're probably using SoG Explore and the old digital collections. But you can do a quick search in the surname search to see if a surname you're interested in is in any of the index data sets. And while you can do more sophisticated advanced searches for full names and places, etc., on both SoG Explore and the old digital collections, this is a good way of being able to see what there is. So here, for example, I've entered the name Swinfield and used it on SoG Explore, and that will tell me if something comes up in one of the index databases. In this case, I've used the categories on SoG Explore to identify that I want monumental inscriptions within the birth, marriage, deaths and parish registers that we happen to have digitized. And by no means are all the 20,000 scanned volumes of monumental inscriptions in the library been digitized yet, but eventually we will be adding them to them. But some had, as almost as a pilot project to see what there were. So as I say, the name Swinfield appears in a data set of a digitized copy of the Hereford Cathedral monumental inscriptions, which had been published in 1881, with one entry indicated there at the bottom of the screen. And if you're logged in as a member, you can view the entry, in this case, a 13th century monument from the cathedral. In this case, not only have we made a copy of the book available for members to read online, but we've created a name index for it. And it's that index data set that's generated the results in the initial search. So you can click on the image in the index entry, and this will show you the entry for Richard Swinfield, the Bishop of Swinfield, amongst the other two memorials and effigies recorded within the cathedral. The old digital collections do allow you to browse through particular collections, so you could click on monumental inscriptions, and there is a sort of various folders for the monumental inscriptions from the library project that we have digitized so far. When the new A to Z listing in SoG Explore comes along, I'm hoping that you'll be able to replicate something like that. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of selections from the SoG monumental inscriptions collections, which we had digitized as part of a pilot. So, for example, we had a digital copy of the book Curious Epitaphs, edited by William Andrews, originally published by William Andrews and Co. in 1899. A copy is held in the Society's library, and this had interesting snippets from all around England. And that was there you could browse. And here for Essex, we have some books which have been digitized and which can be read online, as well as some index MI inscriptions from the library. And it's where these indexes have been added to the data set that you can find entries from the surnames. So here's a digitized copy of a book called Among the Tombs of Colchester that can be browsed online in the old SoG digital collections. And incidentally, there's a direct link to this digitized book from the library catalogue into the old digital collections, so that there's a pathway to tell you this book has been digitized. Now, not all of the digitized books, as I say, can be viewed properly in SoG Explore yet. That's something that's coming in due course. And here's a digitized copy of a book transcribing monumental inscription Earl's Colne. Neither these nor the Colchester works have been separately name indexed into the database, but both books had their own index pages, which you can read within the book and then go to the relevant page. So that leads me to look at other records memorializing people after death, and in particularly the Society of Genealogists memorial card collections. Memorial cards are a small commemoration to a recently deceased person. They were particularly fashionable during Victorian England and well into the 20th century, passed out to funeral attendees and sent to distant families and friends not able to attend the funeral. They were usually supplied by the undertaker on behalf of the bereaved and were often posted in black-edged envelopes as notification of the death or invitation to the funeral. The peak of the memorial card popularity was probably in the 1870s and the 1880s. The memorial card collection was donated to the Society between 2016 and 2019 by Phillips Jones, who'd been acquiring these cards from collectors and antique fairs since the early 1990s. The collection comprised of approximately 4,500 cards, referring to over 8,500 individual images, largely created during the period 1846 to 1994 from throughout the UK, and of course includes reference to many people born prior to these dates. Before passing his collection over to the Society, Mr. Jones had made a concerted effort to reunite cards with interested family members by advertising in local Family History Society journals and magazines between 2004 and 2010. The SoG has no note or record of the whereabouts of any cards which might have been withdrawn by Mr. Jones and passed on to others prior to the transfer of the collection. And sometimes someone's seen a reference in a family history magazine to a card, and they've asked us if it's in the collection, and I can only assume that somebody had responded to that advertisement and been reunited with it. So only those cards which were in the possession of the Society have been scanned and indexed. However, we're always interested in adding to the collection in the future, and we'll always welcome donations of unwanted memorial cards to scan and index within that memorial card collection. So at the moment, you can find a pathway to the memorial card collection on the website, but we have also migrated them over to SoG Explore. The project pilot on the website, when you click on the memorial cards, opened up a way to browse and to browse and search through the various cards, and it's worthwhile looking at the hints and tips on searching. Say eventually the memorial cards will be fully searchable within our new SoG Explore, but in the meantime, and in the interest of sharing the collection with members, the information on the cards was put up on a temporary database on the website with that tab. It didn't include things like wildcard searching, and searching by place isn't very easy, all of which will be improved when it goes over to SoG Explore. But you can filter in the project pilot on sort of forename and surname and age, and places like that to see, and they are, say, quite a remarkable variety. The cards are printed in black or silver and white or beige cards. Some took the form of a single black edge card measuring about 11.5 centimeters by 7.5 with a blank space left in the center for appropriate details to be entered by the printer. Other cards were doubled with the details of the deceased printed inside on the right and a religious text or verse on the left. They range from very simple designs to more elaborately decorative pieces of art, and would often contain thoughtful quotes, Bible verses and prayers, etc. Birth date information on the cards in this collection often predate the start of civil registration in 1837. So here we can see a card relating to a memorial for Margaret Sarginson, who died in 1885, aged 70, so born around 1815. Double-sided fold-out cards can be viewed from image to image in the pilot project, but the image viewer on SoG Explore, we're waiting for that iteration to be able to scan through the images easier. So that's why using the pilot project at the moment is a bit easier to view those. And you can see the inner text within the folded card by moving through the images. And so there's quite often sort of 4 sides to a card. For genealogists, the prime sources are sometimes scant in detail compared to other resources, but they are true relics. The cards usually contain the name of the deceased, the date of death and date and place of burial, which of course isn't always recorded on a death certificate, so it can be the only clue about where someone's actually been buried. Often the cards contain the deceased parents' names and or spouses' names. Some contain the place of residence of the deceased and the place of burial. Some contain some welcome extra information, such as a photograph of the deceased or a detail of cause of death, sometimes a grave number in a municipal cemetery, or the name of the undertaker. It's clear that some of the cards in the collection relate to people in the same family. Even if you do not have a family amongst the cards in this collection, they're certainly worth having a look at, as they're rather poignant, and it's really a wonderful special collection offering a glimpse into a bygone era. Often memorial cards for infant deaths are really poignant, and here's various cards for children. I just pulled out, show me cards relating to children aged 2, and there were more than I would really like to have seen. Again, where they've been interred, you can tie these into, if she died in August 1921, so you can actually sort of tie these into the for addresses, etc., in the 1921 census. More recent cards reflect social change in modern practice. So here, Florence Elizabeth Glazier was cremated, which became more common after the war. Some of the memorials may include a picture or photograph of the deceased, such as Bishop Henry John Foskett, Bishop of Leeds, memorial card from giving his dates of birth from 1936 to 1950. Sorry, no, when he was Bishop of Leeds between 1936 and 1950. And of course, newspaper obituaries and memorial cards tie in together, and so the report of the funeral and the actual card itself. One wonders how the memorial cards were distributed and received. Several are printed by undertakers who obviously provided the memorial stationery. Nowadays, you can design and print off your requirements online from lots of providers. Note these cards in the collection are not invitations to funerals, but they were distributed at the funeral or to those who couldn't attend. Had they been superseded by newspaper announcements, perhaps? Or indeed, perhaps the memorial, the order of service from the funeral seems to be more common than actually a memorial card. And it's really quite poignant that this, last time I gave this talk, I had just recently given, attended the funeral of a former fellow, Eric Probert, and the reason this talk had been changed from tomorrow is I'm going to a funeral of another esteemed fellow, Nick Newington Irving, tomorrow, and I'll be interested to see what kind of memorial card and or order of service is presented at that funeral. So I hope you can see that the Society of Genealogists has all sorts of memorials, monumental inscriptions, interesting things relating to the death and burials of our ancestors. And the library catalogue is an absolutely fantastically useful place to start looking. Only a fraction of our collection has been digitized and put online, but having scanned all the MIs and improving SoG Explore, watch how that platform transforms throughout 2025, and hopefully we'll be able to start putting our large collection of monumental inscriptions online for people to view from home. So thank you very much. I'll stop sharing there and answer any questions if there should be any.
All right. Well, thank you.
Just answered it because it says, do you have any idea on what the time frame will be for more digitized MIs to be available and to be viewed online?
Okay, well, we scanned them all. Now we're actually getting a project plan to hand for how they can be put up, but we had to wait for the new image viewer, and that's only just coming on for early January. So once the image viewer, which means that you can scan through multiple pages a lot easier, is working, I think things will get a bit better. I can't say any more than that because the meeting to actually sort of plan that next part is actually only just been arranged. So as soon as I know, you'll know.
And there's another question just come in. I recall a big project underway to geomap photograph all C of E parish graveyards.
Yeah.
Is there any scope to link the Society's collection and the records to that once complete?
We've made overtures and spoken about it, but it's a university project that doesn't seem to value the work that's already been done by family historians. And I have said, I think a lot of this is actually reinventing the wheel. So I'd be interested to know if that geocaching and photographic work actually comes into something that's going to be of use to the general public, because I don't think to be honest, I don't think they were that interested. And obviously there are big crowdsourcing projects like Find a Grave and things like that, which are working. But I think one of the advantages of some of ours is that because we've been around so long, as I say, the example I chose of one that, something that was recorded 50 years ago, the monument really hasn't survived very much. So, I think it's all valuable, and we're happy to work with whoever there is. I think there's lots of overlapping projects in this field at the moment, and I don't think there's much coordination.
Right, that's all the questions in the chat.
All the questions in the chat, as Heather says. I will stop the recording now, having first thanked Elsa for that. We can do general thanks in a moment.